Now, after you see a little bit about classes and you know a bit about structs from 209, you might ask the question, what's the difference between a class and a struct? And that's a really good question. And actually, the answer is more subtle than you might initially realize. We actually need to break this down into three parts. So there are actually three similar but different things. In C++, we have classes that we've been talking about. And in C++, you also have structs. And then in C, a different language, there are these things called structs. So there's these three things: C++ classes, C++ structs, and C structs. Now, what are the differences between these things? Okay, well, when I want to make a C struct, I need to use the keyword struct, and then give it a name, and after that, I'll declare the fields that are there. By default, any field inside of a C struct is public because any other code can access it. There's no way to hide or protect fields in a C struct. Okay, also in a C struct, you can only have data fields. You can't have methods, right? And the only access type you could ever have in a struct is public. You can't make anything private. So C structs are really basic. And that's what I assume you know about from 209 and how you think about structs. But now when we move to C++, in a C++ program, if we have a struct, it's actually more sophisticated. A C++ struct also begins with the struct keyword. By default, the first member of a struct is public unless you specify otherwise public. Inside of a C++ struct, you can have data or methods, just like a class. And you can also label any of the members of a struct as public or private. There's also another access modifier called protected, but we haven't talked about that yet. We'll get to it later. So inside a struct, you can have any of those. Okay, now within a C++ class, you use the class keyword. The default access mode, if you don't specify, is private, not public like a struct. You can have data as members, and you have all the access types available. Okay, so just to summarize, the key differences I've highlighted in this table. So the difference between C struct and C++ struct are in these two categories. For a C struct, always, and you can't have methods. But in a C++ struct, you can have data and methods, and you have access specifiers. You can make them public, private, or whatever. The only difference between a C++ struct and a C++ class is actually one thing. It's what the fields are, how the fields are accessed by default. If you don't specify public or private, then by default, a C++ struct is public. And by default, C++ class is private. And that's the only difference. And you can use structs and classes in the exact same way, as long as you adhere to this difference. But a C struct is very different than a C++ struct. It's far more limited than what it can do. So the implications in C++ structs and classes can do the same thing. So just to keep it simple, during the semester, when I write code and when I want an object, I'm going to use a class. There's nothing a struct can do that a class can't do. And calling it a class just clues us in a little more explicitly that what I want is an object. So when I want an object, I'm going to use class. Okay, C structs are also legal as C++ structs, but not vice versa. And so what that means is that the classic C struct offers compatibility between the C and C++ language. If I make a struct and follow the rules of C, then I could use that code in either a C program or a C++ program. So when I need compatibility, if I ever need compatibility, then I want to obey the rules of C when implementing a struct. Okay, so most of the time this semester, I'm just going to make classes and forget about structs. But every now and then, I might make something a struct. And so if I do, it might be this more subtle reason that compatibility is useful, or that I just want to convey to the programmer that all I need is public access and nothing else.